Hey guys, it's Nailbiter, and this is a replay I had with the T49 on Highway. Now, there are a couple of reasons I wanted to post this replay. The main thing I wanted to talk about was the opening spotting run that you'll see me use in this replay, because it's what I almost always do now from the north spawn on Highway when I'm playing a light tank, and I've had a fair amount of success with it, so I wanted to explain a bit about why I like it. The other reason for posting this replay is there are a couple of moments over the course of this replay where I have to deal with multiple tanks at once. So I wanted to highlight those moments a bit and just talk a bit about my thought process in dealing with those situations. Anyway, as I think I've talked about before, or at least mentioned in the descriptions of videos that I've posted in the past, I'm not a huge fan of going field on Highway at the start of the game, and especially from the north spawn, because once you commit to the field, I find it's very difficult to safely retreat from that area of the map. And I tend to try to avoid getting into positions like that. I like to have the flexibility of being able to run away if I have to. And from the north side of Highway in particular, I just find it's really rare that you're able to retreat without, at the very least, losing some of your HP. And a lot of times you might actually get yourself killed. So with light tanks specifically, instead of either going to like A2 or that area under the bridge around E5, for example, I've started actually doing a scouting run in the south of the map. There's a bush around J8 or so, which I find works really well as a passive spotting bush, and it's a great way of getting early information on just about everything the enemy is sending to the city. So that's what you'll see me do in this replay. Now, you do have to be kind of careful as you're making this scouting run because you're pretty exposed to the enemy team. So if you happen to get lit at any point, it's important that you're either prepared to run away or that you have some kind of nearby hard cover that you can use to hide behind until you get unlit. And I mean, this really goes for most scouting runs. I mean, inherently with scouting, you're going to be somewhat exposed, so you always want to have some escape plan if you happen to get lit. But what I'll typically do for this scouting run is instead of driving straight down the 8 line through the forest, which is probably the most direct route to the spotting bush, I'll usually stay on the edge of the city in between the 8 and 9 line, kind of like you see me doing here, so that if I do happen to get lit, it's pretty easy for me to just quickly duck into the city and avoid getting shot. And then at the last second, I'll cut over to the bush, although ideally I wouldn't knock down as many trees as I did right there, because that can often alert people to your positioning. Now, normally I would actually wait in that bush for a few seconds to see if I can light everything the enemy is sending down the J and K line into the city. But because I lived that Wheezy kind of close to me and I had knocked down so many trees, I wasn't really sure if he was potentially looking in my direction or he might even spot me. So just to be safe, I decided to run away. I didn't want to stay there too long and end up losing unnecessary HP. So I decided to just run back toward my base. But I did get a decent number of spots in the enemy team, and actually, you'll notice I got a little bit of spotting damage as well. That's the other advantage of making this scouting run is if you are allowed to actually sit in that bush. A lot of times enemy tanks like to sit around on that ridge around J5 or J6. And you'll notice I spotted, I think, a CDC and a Panther 2 in that position, and so a couple of my teammates, I think, or maybe it was the Sturv on my team, got a shot into one of them, and a lot of times you can actually get more spotting damage than what I did just now. So at this point, I really just want to wait for the game to develop a little bit. It looks like the enemy team hasn't committed much to the field, so I was thinking about heading in that direction, but as I was driving back, I lit that T44 and Batchet 12T going under the bridge, so I want to try to deal with them first before I actually commit to the field. So you can see me driving around a little bit looking to get shots into this Batchet 12T. He was being pretty aggressive with his spotting. Unfortunately, my gun isn't really cooperating here. And I have to be kind of careful as well, because if I overextend myself trying to get shots into the Batchet, then I could get shot by anything the enemy team has on the J line. So I'm hoping that the Batchet will just keep poking and I'll eventually be able to take him out. But it kind of looks like he's stopped peeking over this hill. And so I end up deciding to glance toward the city to see if I have any shots in that direction. But as a tier 9 light tank in a tier 10 game, I'm not really going to be able to do much to these heavy tanks if they're facing me frontally. So at this point, I'm starting to feel like I've been idle for too long and that I need to stop playing passively and do something to help my team. So I decided that even though both the T44 and Batchet are still alive under the bridge, I know that the T44 is pretty low health, and I've put one shot into the Batchet already. So I'm feeling confident that even though I'll probably lose a chunk of HP in this engagement, with the DPM of the T49, I should be able to take both of them out, and I'm thinking that making this play should help my team take control of the field. Now, I'm actually going to pause the replay briefly just to explain some of my thought process here as I'm making this play. So first of all, I wanted to point out the route that I took to engage the 12T and T44 because I deliberately was trying to drive in a way that meant I would stay unlit for as long as possible, and thus that I wouldn't lose any unnecessary HP before actually engaging either of them. So you'll notice if you watch that sequence back again, I don't know exactly when I got lit, but I was well into the river before my light bulb went off, which gives me a huge advantage because not only am I still at full HP when I get my first shot off, but I'm also able to catch them completely by surprise, so they don't really have any time to prepare for my attack. The second thing I wanted to point out is that you'll notice as I was driving toward the bridge, I spotted an FE 4005 up around D1. Now, initially I was thinking that I would stay on the north side of the bridge because I'm pretty sure there are tanks around J5 who could shoot me if I go completely under the bridge. But obviously the FV has the potential to one-shot me if he hits me, so I want to avoid his shot at all costs, and you'll see me react to this in a second. I'll end up going under the bridge once I see him behind me and make sure, even though I'm not really sure he's looking at me, I'll make sure that I just don't want to be in his line of sight. Now, the final thing I wanted to mention is that generally speaking in this kind of situation when you have two targets to choose from and neither of them is a one-shot, you want to focus out the autoloader because of the burst damage potential those tanks have. But in this situation, it's going to take me 3 more shots to kill the 12T no matter what. So he's going to get the rest of clip off no matter what I do. Well, I can definitely kill the T44 in 2 shots. So I decide instead of continuing to shoot the bat shot, I'm going to focus down the T44 first and then hopefully kill the bat shot as he's reloading. So you'll see here I instantly switch focus to the T44. And after I take that first shot, I check the FV behind me, but since I couldn't really tell which way the FV was facing, just in case, I wanted to get more fully under the bridge and out of his line of sight because obviously I don't want to get shot or killed by him. And now it's pretty clear the bat shot is on reload. And you'll notice I actually think he only damaged me with 1 out of 4 shots. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I was able to surprise him in that position. And he kind of panicked a little bit, so he was rushing his shots and not really focusing on making them count. I did take 1 last shot there from the CDC, but all in all, I made a pretty aggressive play there, but I think because of the things that I mentioned earlier, it really turned out pretty well, where I only lost about 400 HP. Anyways, I'm driving up the D line, this Roomba gets spotted, and for some reason I wasn't expecting him to be looking in my direction because I kind of turned right toward him and then at the last second angled, so I got kind of lucky there with that bounce. But I'm just going to pause the replay again here briefly because once I got that bounce off the Roomba, I decided I was going to just try to circle and engage him because I knew he had a long enough reload that I could get around him without having to worry about getting shot again. But then as I go to circle him, I spot this stirve behind him. And so now it's again a kind of situation where I have to deal with multiple enemies at once. And from this point, I can't really tell where this stirve is looking. So he could be aiming at me. And if that's the case, I really want to try to get into cover as quickly as I can because the stirve can really mow through anything if you're just out in the open in front of it. So I decide here, even though I know that if I don't go past the Roomba, I need 2 shots at least to kill him, so he's probably going to reload and shoot me again. But if I can kill the Roomba in those 2 shots and just take the one shot from him, then I'll have hard cover that I can use from the stirve. So even though I'll take some HP loss by just sitting in front of the Roomba, it'll prevent me from getting shot, at least maybe 2 or 3 times and potentially killed by the 103B that's behind him. So what I end up doing here is instead of continuing to go around the Roomba and circle him, I just stop in front of him and make sure that the STRV doesn't have a line of sight on me. So here you can see I just back off here and put another HE shell into the Roomba. I know he's going to shoot me again, but I want to just make sure that I stay in cover from the STRV. And the Roomba ends up getting killed by a Scorpion G on my team. Now the Stirve gets spotted again, and I can tell he's not really looking in my direction, so I decide to kind of just go for it. At this point my team's in a pretty good position, and I just want to get under him so that he can't shoot me, and I can kind of get on his side now. So I think he's tracked here in this position, so I'm just going to get on his side and get a little bit of free damage on him here. So at this point the game is pretty much decided. It's just a matter of cleaning up the last remaining tanks, or probably towards city. And the rest of the game, my goal is really just to try to get as much as possible out of it. So I'm going to be kind of aggressive and driving back toward the rest of the enemy tanks. I spot a Roomba doing God knows what, driving out in the middle of the open. So I get a shot into him, and then I also get some nice assist damage off of him. And this is the advantage of being in a light tank in these late game situations, is if you can save enough of your HP so that you don't have to really worry about getting killed, you can often get a lot of this cleanup damage, and you can use it to pad a lot of your games. So I definitely get a few additional kills here, as well as some additional assist damage, which is always nice. But anyway, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about in this replay. As I said before, the main reason I wanted to post this was to highlight that opening scouting one which I used, and I actually have a couple of additional replays that I want to post using that particular opening play, but the replays end up going slightly differently to what you see happen here, so I wanted to post those just to show how I react to slightly different circumstances while making the same play, and I thought it might be kind of interesting to just compare how the three separate rounds play out. And you can see I have a little bit of trouble driving here as I'm kind of in my eagerness to try to get this Top Gun on the TVP, so I don't end up getting a final shot on him. But anyway, there's the end of the replay, and now I'll show you guys the post-game stats. And here are the post-game stats. I ended up getting an ace tanker for that game in the T49. The T49 actually is a really great tank now that it got moved up to tier 9. It's got, as I said earlier, it's got great DPM, and it's a pretty fun tank to play, so I definitely would recommend trying it out. This ended up actually being a pretty balanced game too, where I ended up doing about 2,800 damage, and I think about 3,300 assist damage, and I actually got a scout as well, so in a pretty good all-around game, I thought, and hope you guys enjoyed it. And as I said earlier, I'll have those other two replays posted on my channel pretty soon after I have this replay or this video uploaded, so I'll put a link to that other video in the description as well if you want to check those out. So anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys later.